What's up, y'all? So the playoffs are less than 3 weeks away, and I just posted a video on my Western Conference strength and weaknesses for every playoff team. So today I'm going to do it for the Eastern Conference. Starting with the top of the conference, the Detroit Pistons, and their strength is the playoff level defense that they play. They are second in defensive rating, and they just completely embody Detroit basketball, being heavily physical and averaging the most fouls in the league. And I think it will just translate beautifully to playoff basketball. The Detroit Pistons are first in turnover percentage, and that is mainly thanks to Asar Thompson, who is one of the best defenders in the league, and he is a hound on the perimeter and will cause turnovers and get his team out in transition. And down low, they have some of the best defensive bigs in basketball, leading to their third best rim defense. And Isaiah Stewart is truly just Detroit basketball through and through. He is highly physical. He will beat you up down low and make sure you get nothing easy by the basket. And he comes off the bench. So for the first 8 minutes of the game, you have to deal with Jalen Duren, who is one of the strongest players in the league and someone else you do not want to see by the basket. And the weakness for the Pistons is the loss of Cade Cunningham, and there is a chance he does come back in time for the playoffs. But I think him not being available not only puts your championship hopes at stake, but they might get upset in the first round. This team's half-court offense solely relies on Cade Cunningham. He is plus 7.6 points offensively when he is on the court, and they just do not have that backup guard or secondary ball handler to replace him. Dennis Jenkins has shown up beautifully in the regular season so far, but I think once the postseason hits, we will realize that Dennis Jenkins was amazing in the regular season to win basketball games, but in the playoffs, it will just not be enough. And this team is great at using their defense and turning it to offense. They are last in the league in half-court possessions. They are at the top of the league in offensive rebounding and top 2 in transition frequency. But I think in a playoff series, I would just need to see it happen before I really give faith back into this team after the loss of Cade Cunningham. And the next team is the Boston Celtics, and their strength is the maniac that is Joe Mazzulla. A lot of people knew that this team could still be competent with the loss of Jason Tatum if they wanted to be, but being a top 2 seed in the Eastern Conference is still defying odds for most people, and I think a major factor is Joe Mazzulla. The Celtics on the season have the second best ranked offense and the fourth best ranked defense, which is even better than their 2025 season, but this team really just takes care of the ball on offense. They are second in the NBA in turnovers, 80% of their offense comes in the half court, which is third in the NBA, and they are still the second most points per 100 possession. And in Joe Mazzulla fashion, this team is still top 3 in the NBA in three-point frequency, where they've been top 3 for the last 4 years. And on the other side of the ball, they are still one of the toughest defensive teams in the league, with hounds like Derek White, Jordan Walsh while Jason Tatum was out, and even Hugo Gonzalez, their rookie, who will come in off the bench and guard the other team's best player. And I also do want to credit Jaylen Brown in the amazing season that he's having. He is at the top of the list when you talk about two-way players in the league, and is also a major factor to this team being top 4 on both sides of the ball. And just seeing him step up and be that first option while Jason Tatum was out has looked beautiful and deserves a high level of respect. And their weakness would be, like the Oklahoma City Thunder, that their second option has been injured pretty much all season and is pretty vital to this team if they want to win a championship. And I do want to say, I think Boston's case is less concerning than the OKC Thunder because they're in the Eastern Conference, because I think Jason Tatum has looked better than Jalen Williams this season in their games played, and this Celtics team is just a lot more polished that they don't need Jason Tatum on every night to win basketball games. But with that being said, this Celtics team is just so well-rounded that it is hard to find a true weakness for them. But regardless, the season Jaylen Brown is having is amazing, like I said. But when you get into late postseason runs, whether it's the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals, I don't know if I trust Jaylen Brown to carry you to a ring without at least an 80% Jason Tatum. And Tatum has looked good considering the fact that he came back insanely quickly from an injury as serious as an Achilles, but he still will have his nights that reminds you that he is still ramping up for the playoffs and had a lot of time off. And I just don't know if these Celtics can afford 2-3 games of Tatum being a liability before they see themselves in a 7-game series. The next team is the New York Knicks, and the one thing they do really well in their strength is going to be their offense. That is one thing they can hang their hat on, and you can often rely on the Knicks offense. And we can start with Jalen Brunson and the impact that he gives on that side of the ball. Right now he's averaging 26 points per game and is a major scoring threat, but he also averages 7 assists per game and can get 2 feet in the paint and either shoot it where he shoots 45%, or he can create an open look for a guy like Anunoby or Karl Anthony Towns. The Knicks are also 6th in offensive rebounding, rebounds, and they have Mitchell Robinson, who is top 4 in offensive rebounds per game and is just one of the best in the league when it comes to that specifically. So when you have Karl-Anthony Towns or Mikal Bridges shooting 30% like they do some nights, you will have OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, and Mitchell Robinson all crashing that offensive board. And their weakness is not surprisingly their defense, where they ranked 9th in the league, so it's not as bad as a team like the Denver Nuggets, but it is something to look at when you're going into a postseason series with Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson as your 2 top players. And the Knicks do have lineups with very positive defenses, but most of them include Karl-Anthony Towns at the 4 and Mitchell Robinson at the 5, which is just not possible to close a game with Mitchell Robinson in his free throw struggles. But overall, I think the Knicks have nights where they look like a top team in their conference, and then they'll have other nights where they lose to a team that they have no business of losing to. So it's hard to pinpoint a weakness to this team other than their obvious defensive inconsistencies. The next team is the Cleveland Cavaliers, and their strength was trading for James Harden. This team fell as low as the play-in just a few months ago. Whenever preseason, I had them as the 1st seed in the conference, and they primarily fell due to the health of Darius Garland. Darius Garland just really helped unlock this Cavs team, so whenever he was out, this Cavs team just looked ugly and stagnant. But they dropped in these standings because they didn't have an available all-star guard, so they made a trade for a reliable, still all-star level guard in James Harden, and it has worked for this offense beautifully. With Harden, this team has a 15-5 record, and he is averaging 21 points per game, but also 7 assists a game, and he is able to set up Evan Mobley or Jared Allen, as well as Donovan Mitchell, who is just one of the best scorers in the league and a top shooting guard in the league. In lineups with Harden and any combination of the other 3 between Mobley, Allen, and Mitchell, this team has a positive net rating as well as a positive offensive rating, and there's a chance come playoff time we still see another Harden 3 for 16 stinker. But if this team is able to be healthy and make a Eastern Conference Finals run or a Finals run, this trade could be looked at as one of the best of the deadline. And the weakness to this team would be the possible injury concerns. Harden has played 20 games with the Cavs, but in those 20 games, the Big Four has only suited up for 4 of those games. And I think the only way the Cavs make a run this postseason is having all 4 of their guys healthy. In the limited 31 minutes that this 4 has played together, they have a near plus 30 net rating, which obviously won't be that high come playoff time, but still you can see the impact that all 4 of these guys have together, and I think that is what you will need in a playoff series. And the next team is the Toronto Raptors, and their strength is their playoff level of physicality. Scottie Barnes specifically is one of the best defenders in the league, and he can size up or down and guard 2 through 5 on any given possession. Scottie Barnes' defensive impact is what has led this team to be a certified playoff spot for now, but he's just so portable and versatile on that side of the ball, and the Raptors are top 4 in forced turnovers, and they can get out in transition themselves. And the Raptors' weakness is the unreliable offense in the half court. On the season, they are 15th in the league in offensive rating and 14th in the league in points per possession in the half court. So when the game slows down and they aren't able to get as many runouts, I don't know if they'll be able to score reliably. Next is the Atlanta Hawks, and their strength is very similar to the Raptors. They turn their defense to offense and get out in transition, but they just do it even better than the Raptors do. The Hawks are in transition the 4th most in the league, and they lead the league in transition scoring as well as being at the top of the league in points off of steals. And they have 2 of the better perimeter defenders in Dyson Daniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who have both taken a minor step back defensively from last season, but the Hawks still average the 5th most steals per game, and that is how they get their points. They have a Jalen Johnson freight train running down in transition. And their weakness is their lack of rebounding, which might sound pretty minor, but the Hawks are pretty average on everything on the court, except they don't rebound the ball particularly well, which is probably due to the fact that Jalen Johnson, their forward, is leading the team in rebounds, and their center, Onyeka Okongwu, is only 6'10". And another reason why this matters is that if these standings stay the same, which they probably won't, but regardless, if they match up with a team like the New York Knicks in the first round, they would have to go against one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the league, and the Knicks could potentially start 2 7-footers. Next is the Philadelphia 76ers, and their strength is that all 4 of their big 4 are currently healthy. This Philly team could either make a run to the Eastern Conference Finals or get swept in the first round, and a lot of it relies on the health of their star players. Joel Embiid is still such a talented scorer, and he is an immense threat when he is available. Right now, he's averaging 27 points per game, and just the sheer amount of gravity that Joel Embiid brings could change the course of a game or a series. But he's only played 35 games on the season as I record this, but with a few weeks to go until the postseason, thankfully he is available, but the health of Embiid is just not something that you can rely on. Tyrese Maxey is having an all-NBA season this year. Right now, he's averaging 29 points per game and is just so talented on that side of the ball. He is quick enough to blow by you at any time, as well as being able to burn you from three. But he has dealt with injury concerns himself and is only at 62 games played on the season. And even Paul George has been able to turn back the clock on some nights, and he has missed a big chunk of the season due to injury. But regardless, the health of Paul George is just not something you can bet on. And thankfully, VJ Edgecombe, their rookie, has been relatively healthy this season, and it has not just been another Philly season lost to injury. And the weakness to Philly is that their team just isn't deep enough to deal with the injuries to their star players. Nobody is going to replace the MVP level play of Joel Embiid, but having Andre Drummond or Adem Bona replace those Embiid minutes just isn't sustainable even for one game in the playoffs. And during the Maxey injury, it was Campaign or Quentin Grimes who would take those minutes, who could keep you afloat on some nights, as well as VJ Edgecombe really stepping up and being that ball handler and scoring threat. And you could say this same thing about a lot of teams. If Denver didn't have Jokic, they would lose. If San Antonio didn't have Wemby, if OKC didn't have Shea, and I can go on and on. But when you talk about the unreliable health to 2 to 3 players on this roster, it becomes a lot more apparent when you talk about the potential weakness for this Philly team. The next team is the Charlotte Hornets, and their strength is the amount of sheer offensive weapons that they have. They have the big three of Con Knipple, LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, but even a guy like Kobe White comes off the bench, and now that's 4 guys who could give you 30 on any given night. This also allows for one of them to have an off night. If all 3 of these Hornets guys are on, then they can put up 140 points with ease. But there has been games where LaMelo Ball or Brandon Miller just isn't shooting the ball too well, and it doesn't matter, and they're still able to win ball games because on most nights, at least 2/3 of this team will be on. I have also really liked Charles Lee's offensive coaching. I think being able to get Con Knipple open looks, even while he leads the league in 3-pointers made, is just a compliment to Con Knipple as well as Charles Lee's coaching. And the weakness for the Hornets would be their lack of center play and real rim protection. They have their center rotation of Ryan Kalkbrenner and Moussa Diabate, who are both great for their expectations, and Moussa Diabate shows a lot of effort on that side of the ball, which could play a factor in the playoff series. But still, once you get to the playoffs, you would have to face up against a Detroit Pistons who have Jalen Duren down in the paint, or even a Boston Celtics who don't have a supreme center. Nemez Keita has looked great this season, but still not a supreme center, but they would still have to deal with like a Jaylen Brown drive. And the next teams are the Orlando Magic and Miami Heat, who are currently the 9 and 10 seeds, and I unfortunately just don't think they will get a playoff series, but I will mention a strength and weakness for both of them. The strength for the Orlando Magic is that Paolo Banchero is starting to put it together at the right times. There was a report that Paolo Banchero looked in the mirror, and it seems to be working. In the last 4 games specifically, Paolo is averaging 30, and even if you want to go a little bit further back to the last 15, he's averaging 26. So if you can get Paolo Banchero reliable scoring, as well as Desmond Bane, who has looked a lot better offensively recently, that is your key to get into a postseason series. And the weakness for the Magic is that their big 3 has not all been healthy at the right time. We saw them healthy together earlier in the season, and it just did not look good. But we've seen all 3 of them make jumps, but someone has been out, and now Franz is injured. So even if he can return for that play-in game, I just don't know how it will look. And the strengths for the Miami Heat is how fast they play. They are first in pace and first in transition frequency, and they just get up and down the court. And if a team isn't able to slow them down, that is how the Heat will make a postseason appearance. And their weakness is that they don't have a reliable half-court scorer. Although they aren't in the half-court often, between Bam, who did have 83 versus the Wizards, but now he's playing against Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart. But between Bam, Hero, Powell, who can all get hot on any night, and when they do, it feels like they can beat anybody. But I just don't know who I can look at and expect a consistent 25 points from. And when you have to win 2 games to even make a postseason series, I think that is a big factor. But that is it for my strengths and weaknesses of every playoff team. So make sure y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments, and like and subscribe.